What if everything you've ever wanted already exists, and the only thing standing between you and that life is your mind? The truth is, most people are living the same day over and over, trapped in old thoughts, old emotions, and old habits, wondering why nothing ever changes. But here's what the science of the mind is now confirming. You are not a victim of your reality, you are the architect of it. Every thought you think, every feeling you feel, is sending a signal to the universe. And the universe is always responding. Dr. Joe Dispenza has spent decades studying the intersection of neuroscience, quantum physics, and human potential, and his message is clear: change begins from within. You don't need better circumstances to feel different. You need to feel different to create better circumstances. Your brain is not fixed. Your future is not sealed. The moment you decide to think beyond your environment, your body, and your past, that is the moment your transformation begins. This compilation is not just words. It is a wake-up call. It is permission to stop playing small. It is your reminder that the most powerful force in your life is the one looking back at you in the mirror. Are you ready to become the creator you were always meant to be? Your thoughts are not just fleeting whispers passing through your mind. They are living forces, invisible blueprints that are constantly constructing the world around you. Every single thought you entertain, whether consciously or unconsciously, carries an energy, a frequency, a vibration that goes far beyond the boundaries of your skull. Science is now beginning to catch up with what ancient wisdom has always known, that the mind is not confined to the brain, and that what happens within you inevitably shapes what manifests around you. You are, at every waking moment, either building the life you desire or reinforcing the life you are trying to escape. The human brain fires somewhere around 60,000 thoughts per day, and for most people, nearly 90% of those thoughts are the exact same ones they had yesterday. Think about what that means. If your thoughts are creating your reality, and your thoughts are on repeat, then your reality will keep repeating too. This is not a coincidence. This is not bad luck. This is the mind operating exactly as it has been programmed, faithfully delivering more of what it already knows. The question is not whether your thoughts are shaping your life. The question is whether you are aware enough to choose which thoughts get to do the shaping. Dr. Joe Dispenza often reminds us that every thought triggers a chemical reaction in the body. When you think a thought, your brain produces a corresponding emotion, and that emotion floods your body with neuropeptides, molecules that literally communicate your mental state to every cell in your being. In other words, your body does not know the difference between something that is actually happening and something you are vividly imagining. It responds to both with equal intensity. This means that a thought held long enough, felt deeply enough, becomes a biological experience, and a biological experience repeated often enough becomes your default state of being. This is why two people can face the exact same circumstances and walk away with completely different lives. It was never about the circumstances. It was always about the internal world each person carried into those circumstances. One person sees a setback and thinks, "This is the end." Another sees the same setback and thinks, "This is the beginning." Same event, different thought, completely different reality unfolding from that single moment forward. Your thought is the lens through which all of life is filtered, and depending on the quality of that lens, the same world can look like a prison or a playground. What you must understand is that thinking is not a passive act. It is one of the most powerful creative forces available to a human being. When you allow random, fear-based, habitual thoughts to run unchecked through your mind, you are not simply observing reality, you are actively participating in its construction. You are handing over the pen that writes your story to whatever old program happens to be running in the background. But the moment you become conscious of your thoughts, the moment you pause and ask, "Is this thought serving the life I want to build?" you reclaim authorship over your own existence. And once you truly grasp this, once it moves from a concept you understand intellectually to a truth you feel in your bones, everything begins to shift. You stop reacting. You start creating. You stop waiting for the world to change so you can feel better. You begin to feel better so the world around you has no choice but to change. Your thought is the seed, and your life is the garden. But a seed alone, no matter how powerful, is not enough, because what truly determines whether that seed takes root and grows into something magnificent. Most people wake up every morning, and without even realizing it, they reach back into the past. Before their feet even touch the floor, their mind has already rehearsed the same worries, the same insecurities, the same unresolved frustrations from yesterday, and the day before that, and the decade before that. They check the same emotions, wear the same mental clothing, and step into the day as the same version of themselves they have always been. And then they wonder why life feels like a loop. The painful truth is that for the majority of human beings, the personality they call myself is nothing more than a sophisticated collection of memorized responses, automated reactions, and deeply conditioned patterns that were largely formed before the age of 10. Dr. Joe Dispenza defines this with striking clarity. The familiar self is not your true self. It is a habit. It is a biological program so deeply embedded in your nervous system that it feels like identity, feels like personality, feels like just the way you are. But it is not. It is simply what you have practiced the most. And here lies one of the most liberating truths a human being can ever encounter. If it was learned, it can be unlearned. If it was built, it can be rebuilt. The version of you that feels stuck, limited, unworthy, or afraid is not the final version. It is simply the current version, and current versions can always be updated. Breaking the habit of being yourself requires something that most people are deeply uncomfortable with, and that is the willingness to feel unfamiliar. Growth does not feel like comfort. It does not feel like safety. In the beginning, stepping into a new version of yourself feels strange, almost fraudulent, as if you are pretending to be someone you are not. But that discomfort is not a warning sign. It is a confirmation that you are moving into new neurological territory. It means your brain is being asked to fire in ways it never has before, to build new connections, to lay down new pathways, and that process, by its very nature, feels uncertain. The discomfort is not the obstacle. The discomfort is the door. Neuroscience has shown us that the brain is neuroplastic, meaning it is not a fixed, rigid structure but a living, dynamic organ that rewires itself based on experience, thought, and repetition. Every time you choose a new thought over an old one, every time you respond with intention rather than react with habit, you are physically altering the architecture of your brain. New synaptic connections are formed. Old ones that are no longer fed begin to weaken and dissolve. You are, quite literally, sculpting a new mind. And with a new mind comes a new perception, a new attitude, and inevitably, a new life. This is not metaphor. This is measurable, documented biology. The hardest part of this process is not the practice itself. It is the moment just before the practice, when every fiber of your conditioned self pulls you back toward what is known. The old identity does not surrender quietly. It argues. It rationalizes. It tells you that change is too hard, that it is too late, that this is just who you are. That voice is not wisdom. That voice is programming protecting itself. And the single most powerful thing you can do in that moment is to pause, recognize what is happening, and choose differently anyway. Each time you do, you send a new signal. Each time you do, the old pattern loses a little more of its grip. Each time you do, you become slightly less of who you were and slightly more of who you are capable of becoming. And as you begin to shed those old layers, as you start to feel the lightness of no longer being weighed down by a version of yourself that was never truly yours to begin with. Something remarkable starts to happen from the inside out. You begin to notice that your inner world is shifting. Your reactions change. Your energy changes. The way you carry yourself changes. And the moment your inner world begins to change with enough consistency and enough emotional depth, you discover something that takes the entire journey to an entirely new level. Because transformation is never just a matter of thinking differently. There is a place that exists beyond the noise of yesterday's regrets and tomorrow's anxieties. A place so simple, so immediate, so breathtakingly available that most people walk right past it every single day without ever truly entering it. That place is the present moment. Not the present moment as a concept you have heard about in a meditation class or read about in a self-help book, but the present moment as a living, breathing, pulsating field of pure potential that is available to you right now, in this very instant. Most human beings spend the overwhelming majority of their lives either mentally living in the past, replaying what went wrong, or mentally projecting into the future, worrying about what might go wrong. And in doing so, they completely abandon the only moment in which real change is ever possible. The past is a memory. It is a record of who you once were, what you once thought, and how you once felt. It has no power over your present unless you keep dragging it into your now. Every time you replay an old wound, every time you rehearse an old failure, every time you reintroduce yesterday's pain into today's moment, you are making a choice. A choice to let what was continue to dictate what is. And the future, on the other hand, is nothing more than imagination, a projection built almost entirely out of past experiences. When a person whose past has been filled with disappointment looks into their future, they do not see possibility. They see a slightly rearranged version of their pain. Both the past and the future, when they colonize your present awareness, rob you of the one thing that is truly and unconditionally yours. This moment, right here, right now. Dr. Joe Dispenza teaches that when you become fully present, something extraordinary happens at the neurological level. The brain shifts out of its habitual survival mode, out of the stress response that keeps so many people locked in cycles of anxiety and reactivity, and begins to operate from a place of coherence, clarity, and creative possibility. In the present moment, the analytical mind quiets. The internal chatter softens. And in that silence, in that stillness, you gain access to a deeper intelligence that is always operating beneath the surface of your busy, overthinking mind. This is not mysticism. This is the documented neuroscience of what happens when a human being stops time traveling between past and future and simply arrives, fully, completely, and intentionally, in the now. Your point of power has always been here. Not in the boardroom meeting you are dreading next week. Not in the argument you had 3 years ago that you still cannot seem to let go of. Here. In this breath. In this heartbeat. In this singular, unrepeatable moment that will never come again. When you bring your full awareness into the present, you are no longer operating as a product of your past programming. You are operating as a conscious, deliberate creator who is choosing, in real time, what signal to send, what energy to embody, what version of reality to call forward. The present moment is not just where life happens. It is where life is made. It is the raw material from which everything you will ever experience is constructed. And the beautiful thing, the thing that changes everything once you truly understand it, is that you do not need a perfect life, a perfect environment, or perfect circumstances to access this power. You need only your awareness. A single conscious breath taken with full intention carries more creative force than 1,000 unconscious hours spent worrying about a future that has not yet arrived. Every time you choose presence over panic, stillness over noise, now over then, you are exercising the most fundamental freedom a human being possesses. You are declaring that you are no longer at the mercy of time, no longer a prisoner of your history, no longer a hostage to an imagined future. But presence alone, as powerful as it is only part of the equation, because sustaining that power, anchoring it into lasting transformation, requires something that goes beyond a single moment of awareness. Nothing extraordinary was ever built in a single day. Not a cathedral, not a character, not a life worth living. The greatest transformations in human history, whether in science, in art, or in the quiet interior of a single human soul, were not the result of one dramatic moment of inspiration. They were the result of showing up, again and again, when it was inconvenient, when it was uncomfortable, when every excuse in the world was available, and the person chose discipline anyway. Consistency is not glamorous. It does not trend on social media. But it is the single most honest measure of how serious you are about the life you claim you want to create. Dr. Joe Dispenza has documented case after case of people who healed their bodies, rebuilt their minds, and completely rewrote the trajectories of their lives, not through luck, not through a single breakthrough moment, but through the daily, devoted practice of becoming someone new. Meditation practiced every morning. Visualization held with emotional intensity every single day. New thoughts chosen over old ones, repeatedly, relentlessly, without waiting for results to appear before continuing. This is what real transformation looks like from the inside. Not a lightning bolt, but a slow and steady fire that burns away everything that no longer belongs and leaves behind only what is true, what is strong, and what is yours. You are not the same person you were a year ago. You are not the same person you were at the beginning of this very speech. Something has shifted, something has stirred, something deep within you has been reminded of a truth it has always carried but perhaps forgotten along the way. That truth is this: you were never meant to stay the same. You were built for evolution, designed for growth, and wired for a level of greatness that your conditioned mind has spent years convincing you was meant for someone else. It was always meant for you. It has only ever been waiting for you to decide, with every thought, every feeling, and every new morning, to become it.